In this session, I'm going to talk about some of the innovative teaching methodologies. It is in my humble opinion that each of us are capable of inventing and innovating new teaching methods, provided we understand the need for the same. The need for innovating teaching methods have already been elucidated in the previous session. The first methodology I'm going to talk about is crossover learning. The aim of this type of learning is quite simple and straightforward. Connect external environments to classroom environment. For example, it is a wide practice in junior schools where students are taken to museums to expose them to historical facts rather than droning or lecturing them about the facts. This form of teaching encourages students to ask questions. So inquiry from the student's behalf is encouraged in this type of teaching. They become the collectors and curators of information, and teachers act as guide to help them tread along an approved line. This is not only helpful in sciences but also in arts. The second type of methodology is learning through augmentation. Augmented learning is an on-demand learning technique where the environment adapts to the learner and vice versa. By providing on-time remediation, learners can gain greater understanding of the topic. This also stimulates discovery and learning. Most implementation of augmented reality are in form of e-learning. For example, a pop-up window, a toolbar, or a sidebar in a desktop computer while an user is navigating an email will help the user associate the supplemental information with the key text. The same can be done in physical classrooms too, although it might require resourceful creativity. The students might be given supplemental information through even simple charts or index cards to connect them with the key text. The third methodology is incidental learning. Incidental learning is unplanned or unintentional learning. It may occur while carrying out an activity that is seemingly unrelated to what is learned. For example, we all learn some basic routines in our workplace without intending to, from picking up a chalk piece or a attendance sheet to developing notes or even our assessments. We get into the routine and the routine can't be distracted otherwise. However, incidental learning is not led by a teacher, nor does it follow a structured curriculum or result in a formal certification. But this form of incidental learning triggers self-reflection, and this will help the learners to contemplate what otherwise could be isolated learning fragments. This facilitates in making the topic much more coherent as well as cohesive. The next type of methodology is the context-based learning. Now, context-based learning is much more interesting than the previous methodologies. So context here enables us to learn from experience by interpreting new information in the context of when and where it occurs and relating it to what we already know. We come to understand the relevance and meaning. Context-based learning can also be associated with project learning, where we extract what is already known and predict future information. So in a classroom setting, a context is limited by space and time. Beyond the walls of classroom, context has the freedom to expand and contradict itself. A context can be enriched by immersing oneself in a good book. Motivating the students to connect with the deeper meaning is the essence of this type of teaching, and this motivation must come from the teachers through creative processes. The next type of methodology is computational thinking. Computational thinking is more a scientific methodology than the previous methodologies. However, this is a powerful approach to problem solving. Especially when there are complex problems involved, computational thinking lends a helping hand. So there are 4 stages in computational thinking. The first one is decomposition, where a large problem is broken down into approachable smaller fragments. The second stage is pattern recognition, connecting the problem in hand with the historical data. We are already aware of the problem and we are trying to match that particular problem with an historical data. We are trying to relate, or we are trying to find out if this has happened in the past. Number 3 is abstraction, removing or setting aside unnecessary details or redundancies, putting away the unwanted material so as to make the problem much more simpler. And finally, algorithm and debugging, where we develop necessary steps and we redefine those steps by debugging the entire problem. The aim here is to teach students to structure a problem so that the problem can be solved. This method will help them recognize patterns and tackle any complex challenges. While all the methods might seem simpler than computational thinking gives us a scientific and methodical process where students who are comfortable with methodical steps might be much more suited. Next type of methodology is learning by doing science. Using authentic scientific tools and controlling a remote lab can build science inquiry skills, improve conceptual understanding, and increase motivation among students. However, this methodology might be much more useful for science students rather than the art students. A remote lab can deepen understanding for teachers and students by offering hands-on investigations and opportunities for direct observations that complement textbook learning. For example, the student can use a high-quality statistical tool to analyze the ongoing corona pandemic. However, data and technical support to students is very imperative, and the technical support lent by the teacher or the faculty must be on par to help stimulate the learning process. Next method is the embodied learning. The aim of this type of learning is that the mind and body work together so that the physical feedback and actions reinforce the learning process. This method is especially quite useful when teaching science or behavioral sciences rather than arts, because the students will find their coherence with the mind and body and the feedback that they get within themselves. So the aim of the faculty here to enrich the learning of the student, enrich the internal learning of the students. The next methodology is adaptive teaching. We're all aware of adaptive teaching, but to elucidate with much more, each learner is unique. However, we use the same resources and the presentation methods to educate all of them. This creates a problem in synthesis of information by the students. Adaptive teaching offers a solution to this problem. This system recommends the best place to start new content and when to review old content. Teachers, in part, must develop tools to monitor one's progress. This can be achieved through data gathered from self-assessment scores, personality assessments, etc. However, adaptive teaching requires ongoing cooperation from this faculty side too. The faculty must keep on with the students' progress and update themselves on the data. The next type of methodology is the analytics of information. The ongoing contention between IQ and EQ is the essence of this methodology. Typical cognitive and non-cognitive pattern recognition can help in analyzing how students learn and respond to any subject matter. Cognitive aspects include how well a student answers a question or how effectively a student can explain the knowledge imparted to them. For classroom teaching, a promising approach is to combine computer-based system with human expertise to analyze student emotion and dispositions. However, there is a glitch in the emotion analytics. Emotion analytics requires high definition and high resolution digital environments to track the emotions of the students. The final type of methodology is the stealth assessment. This type of assessment borrows techniques from online role-playing games, which is much more interesting in students' point of view. So in this system, similar to online role-playing games, the system continuously collects data about the players, or in this case, the students. This helps in keeping track of the current progress of the student as well as predict future dispositions. When you collect data, the data can be used to predict future dispositions. With the help of rich digital environments, stealth assessments can test hard to measure aspects such as perseverance, creativity, strategic thinking, etc. Please note that these aspects such as perseverance, creativity, strategic thinking are all futuristic predictions. These might not be current predictions but futuristic prediction. The only problem with stealth assessment is it needs rich digital environments.